Weirdings is made possible by listeners like you. Send us your bizarre, your creepy, and true stories, either as a written account or as an audio file, to stories@weirdings.com.
Said I saw three black shadows come around the corner of the building, and my heart started throbbing.
I was too scared to get up and run, and then I felt the pressure on my arm.
And I could feel its breathing. It was that close. I could feel the heat of its breath.
It was like an orange circle, like a set this,
and it was lit up,
oval, sideways oval,
and it was above the schoolyard over our house
and the woods where there was no houses. There were just woods back there.
And you're like, oh my God.
I've never asked anyone about it. I never asked the landlords about the apartment or anything because I felt if I dug into it, something else would happen.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Season 1, Episode 1 of Weirdings. I'm Jonathan Barrett.
And I'm Colin McMillan.
Before we launch into our show, we'd like to share what you can expect from us. Each episode will be covering a mix of stories about the paranormal. This will range from personal experiences shared to us by our listeners, and stories we find interesting that we research and present to you.
Mm-hmm.
For our first episode, we focus on ghosts.
Yes, that's right. Episode 1 is going to be about ghostly visions that people have experienced. Now, as far as the experiences go that you share with us, the only thing we ask is we want your experience to be genuine, and we want to hear them. So anything that's happened to you or someone you know, let us have it.
Our goal here isn't to debunk experiences or attempt to persuade you of their validity. We're basically just two people with a keen interest in the subject matter. Regardless of your personal beliefs, we hope that you find the stories we present as interesting as we do.
Essentially, if you believe it, we believe you.
As a significant portion of this podcast is listeners sharing their story, we felt it was only fair if we start off by sharing our brushes with the paranormal. I'd like to share with you an encounter I had, and while it may not qualify as a full-fledged encounter, I have to admit it was pretty unnerving. Here's my story. Several years ago, I was living in a very remote area of Michigan. At the time, I was dating a girl who lived about a 45-minute drive away, and it was one of those cases where driving via back roads was actually quicker than the highway. It was not uncommon when visiting each other that I would be driving her back well into the night. It was on one such night where I experienced something I'd never forget. It was a fall night, but still close enough to summer that there were still shades of green and the weather was mild enough to have the windows down. We were speeding along the country roads, and like all rural drivers, I was constantly scanning the sides of the roads for any deer looking to make a sudden crossing. Most of the trip was straight roads with very little bends, so visibility was good on this route. The roads were edged with a mix of cornfields nearing harvest and patches of woodland. I had made this drive enough without incident. I was pretty complacent about the trip, so I was settled into that almost meditative state you can reach when traveling a familiar path. We were yammering on to each other about nothing important when a sharp movement at the edge of the cornfield caused me to startle. It rushed at the car from the side while we were passing, so my deer-related instincts were to speed up so it didn't slam into the trunk of my car. But that figure that launched itself at the side of my car was not a deer. I've been over this again and again to try and piece exactly what I saw, but we went by it so fast I have only a brief picture. And some of the detail was reinforced by the girl I was with as she got a clearer view since her head was turned to speak with me while I was watching the road. What I saw was a woman leaping towards the car, arms outstretched. Not as if she was attempting to flag us down, but rather towards the car, as if she expected to somehow grab it as it passed at some 60 miles per hour. I recall she was wearing something white, but I couldn't tell the style of clothes. All I could confirm was that one moment the road was clear, and the next she was right there next to my speeding car. I'd like to be able to tell you that we immediately stopped and got out of the car to check on her. But in my panic, I did not immediately slow down and I continued driving at speed for a small amount of time, trying to process exactly what I saw. It wasn't until the girl I was with started to calm down and ask me if I thought she was okay. That's when I snapped out of it and slowed the car down to a stop. I turned the car around, shining the headlights back the way we came. There was no one there. We talked about driving back, but both of us were shaken, and I have to admit, there was something about the experience that was adding to the shock. An irrational fear was building the more we tried to nerve ourselves up to go back down that road in search of the woman. Eventually, the fear won out, and we turned the car around and continued on. Now, if we're being completely fair, it is completely possible that just because I didn't see the woman when I shined the lights back the way we came does not mean that this was a supernatural event. I had no idea how long we had traveled before I stopped panicking enough to stop the car. It seems like it was quick enough to expect to see her on the road, but the mind plays tricks. She could have also left the road after her abortive attempt to flag us down, moving back into the cornfields. However, there's a part of me that doesn't believe that that was the case. I personally believe that even the most rational of us have sometimes experienced a gut feeling about an event, a sense of not quite rightness that lets you know that whatever it is you just experienced was not in the realm of the normal. And there's no part of me that can revisit the events of that night without bringing that feeling along with me.
Oh boy, that's sounds like a pretty classic woman in white sighting to me. I'm no expert, but, you hear these stories pretty frequently, and I'm sure actually listeners, you're going to hear many references to the woman in white throughout the length and breadth of this series.
Yes, and normally I would agree with you, but the commonality of the woman in white story is that she appears, she obviously looks like she's in distress, and these people stop and they pick her up. At that point, depending on the teller of the tale, it either goes sideways or the person delivers her to a place. And then, she suddenly vanishes and that place ends up being like a graveyard or a broken down house. Right. This experience was something a little bit more different because I've never heard of a scenario where the woman in white actually leaps at the car. And that's what unnerved me.
She leapt out of a cornfield, right? Just kind of, there wasn't a house or even open road. Like it seemed like she was in the field or something like that. And when you went back, all there was left was all you saw there was cornfield.
That's right. Yeah.
Oh man.
Ugh. Honestly, I have no idea what it was. I don't even want to guess. I mean, it could very well be a woman in white, but if it is, it's one of the most aggressive women in white encounters that I've personally ever heard about. Yeah.
Oh, that always creeps me out because I can get such a vivid visual in my head,
Yeah, well, I mean, it's with me forever. There are times when I can close my eyes and see the shape of this thing as it leaps from my car. And it really did look like it was attempting to grab the car, which is astounding to me.
Well, yeah, like, what's your plan here, Ghost? Exactly. What's your end game?
Right. So I understand you have something to share as well, Colin?
I do, and I hope that you get as vivid a visual from it as I got from yours, although I'm actually worried that this might scare you a little bit more than I intended, so give a listen. Have you ever had that eerie feeling when you're all alone that there's someone in the room with you? Have you ever felt a presence just on the other side of a door, but were too afraid to open it? Have you ever been to a place that made you uneasy, and then felt that same feeling in another place? My new wife and I were on our honeymoon in Jamaica. We were staying at an all-inclusive resort with all the services a newlywed couple could want. Room service, cleaning, a fully stocked bar, even a butler. We had everything we needed to enjoy a nice, romantic vacation and rest easy. Until the second to last night. We were asleep in the bedroom, snuggled up and cozy. Through the haze of sleep I heard a loud knock on the door. Not the cheery shave and a haircut knock that the staff usually employed, but simply two heavy thuds on the wooden door. Knock. Knock. My first thought was to tell whoever it was that we were sleeping and to come back tomorrow, but a sudden chill ran down my spine. I felt suddenly very uneasy, afraid. Something told me that I should not, under any circumstances, open that door on that night. I sank back beneath the covers, unsure of what to do. If it was a staff member, they would surely enter when there was no answer, as our butler had done numerous times throughout the week. I wanted to spare us all that awkward exchange, but that feeling paralyzed me. As I lay in my fear next to my wife, an image leapt to mind. A long, dark figure, man-shaped but impossibly lean, walking through the main room of our suite, past the bedroom door. I don't know if I actually saw him, but I knew he was there. I could feel it. I don't know how much sleep I lost, but the vision shook me. The next morning, I apologized to my wife, Jessie, for being groggy. I explained that I had lost sleep the previous night because I was sure there was someone in the room. She gasped. "I thought there was someone here too," she said. "I didn't say anything because I didn't want to scare you." We shared a shiver over our experience and tried to forget about it. 3 days and one stressful trip through customs later, we were back in our own home on day 2 of what friends and family call married life. I had adopted my usual try-not-to-snore position next to Jessie, and we drifted off to sleep together with the cat at the foot of the bed. I'm a light sleeper, so I use a sleep mask and earplugs, relying on sensory deprivation to help me rest. In the middle of the night, Jessie started making a sound that I had never heard her make before. Somewhere between a scream and a whimper, the sound reached me even through my earplugs and shocked me awake. I woke her quickly, upsetting our cat in the process. She told me that she had had a nightmare and that she was all right, but the sound she had made was so unusual, I just wasn't sure. And then there it was again. That feeling. Something was here. Maybe the sound wasn't Jessie at all. Maybe it was whatever thing might be there in the dark. My mind flooded with images of a ghoulish figure leering over the side of the bed, waiting to feast on my wife. Sleep was not going to happen. I had to get up. I had to look around the house just to be sure. Through the darkened house I went, flipping every light switch, checking every window. My search led me out onto the front porch and into the driveway to examine the car. Maybe there had been some neighborhood kids nosing around. When I entered my home again, Jessie was awake and looking for me. We sat on the couch and I explained what I was feeling. She then told me about her dream. "In my dream," she began, "I saw someone standing in the corner, in the shadows. I asked you who he was, and you said he was your friend. You said he could find out anything about anyone, anywhere, at any time. And then it came out of the dark, and it was this man. I think he was disabled or something. He had these thin arms, and they were bound up or something, like crippled, you know? And he jumped at me and started attacking me, like clawing his way up me." We sat together on the living room couch until we calmed down, and we didn't go back to bed until we had put in a nightlight. So there you have it.
That is perhaps one of the worst feelings in the world.
Yeah.
Is the feeling that there's somebody in the room with you, and there obviously isn't.
Oh, yes.
I can't stand that.
And, and I should apologize. I was like, I might scare you, John, but I actually managed to scare myself listening to that story again. And I know I was pretty theatrical about it, but every time I think about this story, it's the part where Jesse says that in the dream, this thing was referred to as a friend. Mm-hmm. That's the part that spooks me. I'm like, it's just like, it gives me the willies every time. And,
well, yeah.
You know what was also interesting about the experience at the time? The thing in our hotel room, the most interesting detail about that I didn't include in my telling is it seemed like what I could see in my head when this thing that was just sort of caught in my imagination, it seemed oblivious to us. It didn't seem to know that we were there. And that was why it was so important that I don't go into the other room. Because if it figured out that we were there, it was going to get us. I don't know, how spooky things are going to get you, whatever that means.
That's right.
He was going to get me,
there are a lot of instances where people say that to begin to interact with these kinds of things always makes it worse.
Yes.
It draws attention to yourself in a way that perhaps you really shouldn't be. I don't know. The one paranormal experience that I had in my life was at 60 miles an hour. So that's about as much interaction that I had.
I would have much rather have passed my little ghoul going 60 miles an hour so I didn't have to feel like it was around, I could be like, oh, that was creepy. Bye.
Right. This thing obviously followed you home. Mine is out in the cornfield somewhere, so I'm perfectly fine with it as, staying there, especially now that I'm 2 states away.
Well, thank goodness we haven't had any repeat incidents in the house since that day. But it was pretty weird. And for a minute, I was really scared that because I've been, poking around and looking into the paranormal and listening to people's stories, and this has been occupying a lot of my imagination lately, I was like, have I done this thing that they say that you cannot do, where I've invited something into my life this way? This is...
Well, let's hope not.
Mm-hmm. So what's next?
We're going to move on to a segment we like to call News from the Internet. Mm-hmm. Each episode, we're going to share a news item from the Internet that we find particularly interesting. This week, it's my turn, and I have another story of a ghost with a taste for pop music.
Well, I gotta hear this.
So, Canadian singer, and I'm going to butcher this, so bear with me, Mazda Jamalzadeh says she has been... Yes. She says she has been haunted by a mysterious figure while working on her new album in Vancouver. The singer has been sharing some behind-the-scenes videos during her sessions, and in one video in particular, it had shocked some of her fans due to an unexpected guest. The strange encounter happens as Mazda reveals details of her new album's words.
Mazda's Jabalzadeh.
While she chatted to a camera, a strange figure appeared behind her in the video. The singer has this to say about the event. I'm really freaked out by what is happening. I've never seen a ghost actually in front of me at the studio, but I do feel something there. When I posted the video, I didn't see this ghost immediately, but looking at it closer, there seems to be some weird figure with long hair that could be a hex figure. I'm not sure what to do, or whether I can face going back. She further states it's not the first time she has felt a ghostly presence in the CBC studios. Sometimes I feel like there is a presence in the recording booth when I sing. Even though it is just me in the booth, I feel like someone is breathing down my neck. I feel the hair down the back of the neck stick up. I turn around and obviously no one is there, but I feel some kind of being in there. I'm going to post a link to the video in the show notes, so if you want to check it out, definitely do so.
I would love to check that out.
Yeah, it's something else.
Does she refer to it as a hex figure?
Yeah, she does, and I looked into that a little, and I wasn't quite sure exactly what she's referring to there.
Yeah, I've never really heard that before. It's very interesting, though. I have this picture in my mind of sort of the Suicide Squad version of the Enchantress,
The way it looks in the video, it's hard to tell exactly what it is. I mean, there's definitely something there. There's no two ways about that. You watch this video, and there is something that appears there that was not previously there and does not look right.
Pretty interesting, and I can't wait to see the link and see some of the visuals or the video or you said video or images?
It's a YouTube video.
Ooh.
Mm-hmm. So you get to watch the thing manifest. Colin, why don't you tell us a little bit about this next story?
Alrighty. I have one that I gathered from a fella I know named Brian, and he works in a little town called Wixom, Michigan, and apparently there's some pretty spooky stuff going on around there, and I'll let Brian tell you more about it. Brian's spooky sighting is a little different than what you might expect, because it takes place in an unexpected location. No cemeteries, no old Victorian homes, no abandoned hospital. This story finds its home in a little town called Wixom, Michigan, halfway between Detroit and Lansing, right along I-96. Brian saw what he saw at his workplace. A laboratory.
There was one night, I was sitting here at the desk.
Brian works the night shift.
And I was eating my dinner. My coworker was sitting beside me at the desk, reading the newspaper. We couldn't see each other's faces or anything, but we were probably 30 feet from the end of the hallway, where there's a door that walks from across the hall. You have to go one door to come in the hall, go across the hall through another door to leave. I was getting ready to put food in my mouth, and I could have swore something walked through the one door and out the second door. And I turned and looked, and I didn't see nothing, nor the movement, and I didn't say nothing to my coworker. I put my food back down, and I thought about it for a minute. Didn't say a word. My coworker put the paper down. He said, "You saw that too?" And I'm telling you, just like right now, there's
At this point, Brian shows me his arm, which is covered in goosebumps.
the goosies. And I'm not really a big believer on this, but I'll tell you, the older I get, makes it easier.
So I got to admit, I got a little bit of the goosies there.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Ooh, the mysterious figure walking the halls of the laboratory. Ooh.
Still, though, I think if there's ever any kind of ghost encounter that I ever want to have in the future, it would be this type of ghost encounter. The kind where it's either a memory, a physical memory of a person moving from one area to another.
An echo.
An echo, yeah.
Yeah.
I would prefer to have that kind than a kind that would have left one door, stopped, looked at the two of them, and then maybe kept moving on.
Oh, I know. Like, can you imagine that? It would be really cool to catch an apparition in a, and I don't mean catch, I mean witness an apparition in a place where you could actually observe it without it being aware of you. And, you know, I don't know, it'd be a good learning opportunity, I think. So, Wixom, Michigan is where Brian's story takes place. And, after he told me his story, I got really excited about doing research on paranormal activity in the area. Mm-hmm. Now imagine how much more excited I was when a coworker told me that there were ancient Native American burial grounds in the area.
Wow. And
now, imagine my disappointment when I tried to find info on the internet about that and came up with nothing.
Oh.
Yeah. Unfortunately, the Wixom burial grounds, and the supposed bodies and skeletons being discovered all along the Pontiac Trail from ancient Native American burial grounds. Yeah, like that, I could not find a thing. I couldn't find a thing. And I even did another search again later to try and find it and could not come up with nothing. But you know what you do come up with? If you do an internet search of bodies in Wixom, it immediately brings you up to the links for the local police department.
Oh. That's kind of a shame that you weren't able to find anything. So now it doesn't even make like the ghost sites, huh? It's just pure rumor that you're...
Oh, no. There's plenty of other activity in the area.
Oh.
I just couldn't find anything about burial grounds. Let me see. Numerous reportings of hauntings within a 5-mile radius of Wixom, including in Wixom itself, actually just about a quarter-mile from the laboratory that Brian is referencing. Mm-hmm. There's a railroad crossing where there was a car accident, and a misty ghost appears near the crossing and has been witnessed by apparently several people. Then in Commerce Township, 4 miles away from there have been reports of disembodied voices, shadow people, poltergeist-like behavior, and 2 separate woman in white sightings reported. Now, in Milford, 5 miles away from Wixom, you've got even more poltergeist-like behavior. The classic little girl in the dress ghosts.
Right.
One that spooked me out called the Paper Man.
The Paper Man.
Yes, the Paper Man. The Paper Man is an old man ghost who was witnessed by a little boy, and little boy he said his skin was thin like paper, so they call him the Paper Man.
I love that name.
Yeah, I know. Like, coming soon to a theater near you, the Paper Man. And then apparently along Summit Road, and this is a creepy one, a very pale girl with bare feet and bloody hands seen obliviously wandering.
I like that.
Yeah, well, I'm not sure like is the right word.
Well, yeah, no, I mean, that's a great one. Anything about what the blood on her hands is or why she might be wandering that stretch of road?
No, I only saw witness reports of seeing the girl with bare feet and bloody hands. And that's on Summit Road. So if you feel like doing some ghost hunting, Summit Road in Milford, just go up there, go up and down the road at night, keep your lights on, and hopefully you won't get bloody handprints all over you. But I have no idea, like, what the source of that is in terms of, who she's supposed to be. Why is she bloody? Why is she barefoot? No information about any of that, just eyewitness report.
Wow.
So that's what I've got for the Wixom and surrounding area hauntings. I believe we've got a break coming up, and after the break, John's going to come back with some paranormal activity stories from the town of Peatone. Is that Illinois?
Peatone, Illinois. And we will see you right after the break.
Hey everyone, while John and I love researching interesting stories for the show, our favorite part is the listener contributions. We want to make sure to thank our contributors and let you know how to reach us with your stories. The best way to reach us is via a message through our Facebook page or contact us via email at stories@weirdings.com. We accept written accounts or recorded audio files. Be sure to tell us how you want to be credited, for instance, by your name or anonymously. If you'd rather set up a time to be interviewed by one of us, send us a message with a date and time and the best way to reach you. We prefer audio-only Skype, but other methods are available to us. We take extra care when editing our submissions not to reveal any personal information unless you ask that it be included. And we promise the submitted content is always presented in the spirit in which it was given. Thanks again, and we look forward to hearing from you.
Welcome back, everyone. For our last story of the episode, I'm going to share a tale from a fellow podcaster, Travis T. Enjoy. You can usually count on people having one ghost story under their belt. They can range from a simple encounter, such as a feeling of being watched, to a well-crafted campfire tale with eerie sounds and people coming face to face with indescribable visions of things they can't explain. For our first episode, I wanted to start with something a little closer to home. While Illinois has its fair share of famous ghosts like Resurrection Mary, the Phantom Monks of Bachelor's Grove, and even the specter of Al Capone, I was hoping to find some good tales that were a little bit more personal.
I'm just going to let you know, this is a little weird for me because I'm not normally a guest. So
That's Travis. Travis hosts the podcast This Freaking Show. And while they describe their podcast as a little bit of something and a whole lot of nothing, they do a lot of local interviews. They also dedicate the entire month of October to Halloween. I figured he might have some good local stories to share. He didn't disappoint. Here's Travis recounting an experience he had in his old apartment.
So when I was 23 years old, I finally got my own apartment, right? And I was super excited. I'm finally living on my own. I got my own place. I don't got to worry about ever cleaning up. I'm enjoying everything about it and everything. It's nice, it's quiet, it's cozy. Never had a problem in the house or in the apartment whatsoever. Never had an idea that anything was wrong with it. There was one night though, and it was probably about 6 months after I moved in there. I was laying in bed and I was kind of sleeping, but I couldn't totally fall asleep, and I didn't know what it was. For some reason, I don't remember doing it. I don't remember how it ended up happening, but. So my pillow ended up kind of I was sandwiched between one pillow and another, and I was laying face up, and I had the pillow on my face. And I'm thinking I don't know why this pillow's on my face, but I have no energy whatsoever to take it off my face. It's whatever. But as I was laying there, I felt like the pillow was being forced into my face. It was almost feeling it was suffocating. And I'm trying to turn my head or anything to kind of not feel like I'm suffocating. Breathing became really difficult. There was a lot of force down on this pillow. It seemed the more I tried to move, the more the pressure kept there's so much force on this pillow. It literally felt like somebody was standing over me, shoving this pillow right down into my face. And I got to the point where I just panicked and jerked myself out of bed, ended up falling on the floor. had no idea what was going on, and as soon as I stood up, when I kind of got myself up off the bed, I swore I saw a figure of like a man, like kind of like an elderly man. I couldn't really see the face, but just his demeanor, he looked like just an old like skeletal like man. It didn't like vanish, but kind of like it slowly like faded like into like the darkness of the hallway and the living room and all that stuff. Like I don't know what it was. I've never asked anyone about it. I never asked the landlords about the apartment or anything because I felt if I dug into it, something else would happen. I've never had a moment where like I felt like I was in danger from something until like it felt like I could not like stop whatever was pushing that pillow down onto my face.
Oh boy. Oh no. Boy, I am just getting the willies left and right in our first episode.
Yeah, I hear you. I mean, there are a lot of times, especially when people are talking about night terrors or encounters with shadow men, where something drastic is happening to an individual while they're sleeping.
Mm-hmm.
But in a case like this where you can't breathe, that would just scare me to death. I'd probably have a heart attack, and then that would be it.
How would you get over it? How would you be able to sleep after that? You know, how could you sleep in that bed, in that place?
I don't know. I mean, that's the thing. It's hard to imagine a situation where I would have an encounter like that and would come away from it okay.
Yeah.
It just seems to me that a lot of the times with these paranormal encounters, even they can eventually become normalized after a while.
Yeah, that's true.
Like you have your experience and then doubt starts to creep in a little bit afterwards. Is that something that really happened to me?
Oh, yes.
And then sometimes it's just hardcore belief when you know that there is something out there.
Right.
And then you take steps to deal with it, whatever those steps are. You know, a house cleansing, learning about the subject matter, whatever it is that gets you through the night. Yeah, moving, which would be my preferred option.
Big thanks to Travis and Brian for their contributions in our first episode. We are looking forward to hearing more from Travis in the future, and maybe from Brian as well if he has another experience.
Absolutely. Now, I wasn't sure what I would find when following up on Travis' story, but I did take some time to see if there were any other strange doings in Piatone. I wasn't expecting much as it's a relatively small town.
Yeah.
But I did find enough to raise some eyebrows.
Oh, really? Well, this I gotta hear.
Coming into town one night on Jackson Avenue, a woman and her daughter were driving home one night towards Piatone when they suddenly saw a glowing man running down the center of the dividing line. They swerved to the edge of the road to miss him, and he kept up with the car for a short time before suddenly vanishing.
Did they state whether or not he was clothed? Because in my mind, he's definitely naked.
You know, in my mind, he is too, and I don't know why that is. I don't know why an encounter like this would be naked, but they didn't state whether he was clothed, but he was definitely glowing and running down the median.
Oh, that's so weird. Glowing naked man. I'm saying naked. running in the median?
Yeah, right down the center of the road. And they swerved around him because obviously they didn't want to hit him. And he pulled a T2.
Oh, man.
And started pacing their car for a while until he just vanished.
Oh, that's weird.
Yeah.
Huh. What else you got?
So the building that was once the Cozy Corner bar and is now known as the Fireside Grill is also reportedly haunted. The son of the former owner has reported many odd occurrences, such as chairs being dragged around the bar area in the middle of the night well after everyone had left. The noise very noticeable from the upstairs living area. And their dog also absolutely refused to enter the basement of the establishment. And several times the son reported the feeling of being watched by an unseen presence late at night after closing.
Oh, man. I know I say oh man a lot, but that's my immediate reaction to all this stuff whenever I'm getting scared. Oh man.
I'll tell you, the chairs getting dragged around, that always flashes me back to Poltergeist.
Oh, yeah.
You know, with the table stacking and everything like that. That's always something that's always unnerved me.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
In an unnamed apartment building in Piatone, one resident was told by the other residents that it was haunted. He quickly found out himself as items in his apartment were constantly moved around and knocked over during the night. and he would constantly hear steps moving back and forth in the central hallway, sometimes stopping in front of his door, but when he would check, there would be no one present.
Ooh.
That's something that I would never be able to do. I've lived in apartments before, and I've heard activity out in the hallway, but if it ever stopped in front of my door, looking through that peephole would have been the hardest thing I could ever do.
Oh, yeah.
I would rather throw a door wide open.
Oh, really?
Than look through a peephole.
I would rather do neither and board up the door and all the windows and just live inside until I starve to death.
There you go. And then lastly, about 7 miles away is one of Illinois' top haunted spots.
Ooh.
The closed Manteno State Hospital. It's a favorite of ghost investigators and amateur hunters alike. This place constantly makes the top 10 of haunted state facilities due to its troublesome history. There have been a lot of reports of many paranormal encounters, such as witch lights, disembodied voices, apparitions, and a smoke-like mist issuing from the broken cremation chimney.
Ugh. So, what are witch lights?
So, witch lights, you've heard of orbs, right?
Yeah.
Okay, witch lights are orbs that are visible to the naked eye.
Oh, so orbs are typically only seen through lenses, right? Through a camera, or you expose the film and then it's... the orbs are seen in the picture after the fact?
Correct.
Ah, okay, all right. See, I'm learning some stuff today, and so are you, good listeners at home.
Absolutely. So, a lot of the Manteno State Hospital has been torn down, and a lot of the land has been repurposed, but there are still areas where there are like half buildings and they're crumbling.
Sounds pretty creepy.
Yep. Well, everyone, that's all the time we have for today. We want to thank our contributors for this episode, as well as thank you for listening. Colin, what do we have for our listeners next time?
Next episode, we are going into the bizarre beasties theme. We are talking about cryptids. That's weird creatures that aren't supposed to exist. Things like Bigfoot or the Jersey Devil or any weird, creepy critters. So if you've ever seen a weird, creepy critter or something that you couldn't explain, send us your story. We want to hear it.
We're looking forward to it. It should be a good one.
That's all for now.
See you next time.
Weirdings is produced and edited by Jonathan Barrop and Colin McMillan. Our theme was composed and produced by David Feslian. You can find this track and many more like it at feslianstudios.com. Additional music was provided by Kevin MacLeod at incompetech.com, Purple Planet Music at www.purple-planet.com, and the Blake Robinson Synthetic Orchestra at syntheticorchestra.com. Weirdings relies heavily on listener contributions. If you would like to provide content for the show, send your written accounts or audio files of you sharing your experience at stories@weirdings.com. You can also contact us through our Facebook page or through the comments on our webpage at weirdings.com. Weirdings can be found on iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, YouTube, Facebook, and anywhere podcasts can be found. Tell your friends about us, and thanks for listening.